Today I'm going to be talking about original, like when we get back to our original. So, firstly, this is part of my own practice of releasing two things. One is the masculine, control, and that is the healing is surrendering to self-expression, which is the feminine, right? And then the feminine perceiving defensively in fear of rejection. Kind of like healing the feeling unlovable is to bring in the masculine. So the masculines, and the feminine, surrendering self-expression, perceiving defensively. Surrendering to self-expression is the healing, and feeling lovable is the healing to perceiving defensively in fear of rejection. And there's a quote from the song Life for Rent by Dido. I have heard her for so long and never known what to call it. And the song has a quote which says, "If my life is for rent and I don't want to buy, will I deserve nothing more than what I get? 'Cause nothing that I have is truly mine." So there's like this original ownership. What are we trying to control when we feel we don't have control? And what self are we surrendering to express from? And who are we defending, right? So if I don't want to pay the price to own my own life, and so I get what I get, right? Nothing I have is really mine, then it's like what I can bring in before I go into this more deeply, the information I wanted to share. I would say for me, it's like maybe the other one's waiting for me to fall out of love with them too. That's been like a theme in some of my patterns where there's pain, is this one waiting for me to stop loving them? And then the control issue is wanting what we can't have, right? And then, so this kind of pattern of letting that go, that no one's waiting for me to fall out of love with them. Nobody stopped loving me in the meantime. Nobody is here for me to convince that I'm lovable. Nobody's waiting around. I don't have to wait around for anyone. That kind of healing. So I wrote a poem. A house divided cannot stand. The owners keep the dog tight, but the dog is gentle, it doesn't bite. Punishment for curiosity, for animals, fractions of logic, irrationals. Too much preventable bother, identifying with my father. Object impermanence is the time. Truth and kindness don't always align. And now I'm going to read a little bit of some of my notes from a class, going back like probably a year or so, on this topic of what is original to us. And this is from Adam and Chava, Adam and Eve. And this is from teachings from the community Romamu, which is the spiritual renewal synagogue. And we start with where did God take him from to work and guard the garden? And commanded not to do something like a ridiculous setup. And, don't eat from this, which is right in the middle, which you're going to want to eat from. And it's only him, not her, to not eat from the tree of knowledge of good and bad. And then they become like shamelessly naked, consciousness without self-consciousness. From that place they become eventually self-conscious and naked with shame, but they start with shamelessly naked, consciousness without self-consciousness. Animals set to be fruitful and multiply, while human, it's commanded as well. Animals are set that way, humans commanded that way. The snake was the shrewdest, and shrewd is related to nude in Hebrew. These words instills doubt, finds a mistruth in Eve's words. God didn't say not to touch. Could be that Adam told her not to touch. Some dogs playing. The snake tempts them even more by saying God has an ego, because God knows their eyes will be open like supernal beings, a new dimensionality to their perception and capacity, their informational grasping. And according to the snake, reason for the prohibition. God doesn't want to lose power. Being naked makes it easier to be taken advantage of. The innocence is a precondition. And there's this like pre-moral universe. God's commandments is what differentiates right from wrong. Because they didn't yet have agency or ability to defy as a separate. God was willing to take a risk. Maybe non-compliance or rebellion is natural, healthy, and inevitable. God made woman for man because it's not good for him to be alone, and she's for him to know her. Which means she's a container for the very knowledge that the tree had. The very knowledge that the tree had is what she is a container for. Elohim means multiplicity. God says creation in total is very good, and the details are good, and potential is left for humanity to be depraved in possibility, Yud Hey Vav Hey, or want to be power, El, or a host for Yud Hey Vav Hey. So there's this potential left for us when there's impossibility of what could be, from a depraved place actually, and on the other side of it of like wanting to be the power or wanting to be a host, so for the power, in other words. And that's why I say surrendering to self-expression means surrendering to the true nature that already we are, rather than trying to control the true nature that we already are. And knowing that someone doesn't fall out of love with me, that there's periods of space that we rebel in order, our commandments are being rebelled against because that's what people do. And the perceiving with defensively in fear of rejection is able to be, like I wrote in the poem, truth and kindness don't always align. And, the time itself is what makes things impermanent. And identifying too much with the other causes a lot of bother. So it's like choosing, if I'm being rejected, it's not me. My truth might be rejected, my kindness might be rejected, but keeping the dog too tight when it doesn't even bite and it's gentle, this love could be the dog. And getting punished for being curious, it's too, it causes infractions, it causes to be against, and fractions themselves are pieces, right? And rationals, it's like getting rations of the love. So in multiplicity, this kind of like solving of being willing to be whole, being willing to be good, and it is good. God, who told him he was exposed after he was intimately vulnerable, admits he's hiding after God asks, "Where are you?" Ruach Hayom is the breeze and the spirit of the day. So it's like this this original true spirit that flows through the day. And like when he's honest and says, I'm open, then, I did this wrong thing, it's like God says, well, how'd you know that you're exposed, kind of? Like, who told you that you've been naked all along? But suddenly you see yourself. Suddenly you see what's good and what's bad. And I'm going to say here, there's like, this is well over a year ago, from a class I was in, and from Romamu called Living Deeply, there was this quote that I got: "Remove yourself from this congregation and I shall consume them." And they fell on their faces. And I shall consume them in an instant. So my lesson from that was like, this is the way to the fire versus my way. So my attachment could be like wanting to have all the power. In my avoidance, I could see that maybe I shirk my responsibility, and in my fear, I avoid uniting the boundaries that merge. And just because I used Adam and Eve from the Bible, I'll say, attachment could think of Korach. Korach challenged Moshe and Aaron, and then there's avoidance here, which is like Moshe, who didn't want to do, a lot of what he was supposed to do because he didn't want to cause any problems. And Aaron, who he just said, I basically don't even need to exist as my own person just so that everybody could be merged and there could be unity. So lashing out breaks the integrity of the group. It breaks trust. It outcasts me. It misaligns me from shared values and meaning. And the woman, Adam and Eve, the woman teaches the standard of enough to her partner. She says, this is enough. I don't need more from you. I'm not going to keep coming to you for more. And we often need these strange details to adapt and to grow. And this kind of ties it all together. What's original for us will give us, the glory and the eternity that will stay with us, even if that is what can be masked and seem bad because it's not original to us. It's like strange details to adapt and grow. In other words, is like when suddenly we now have the knowledge of good and bad, and now we look at ourselves and we say, wow, I'm not so good. It's not so good. I thought I could just say you're not so good out there, or this is not so good out there, but actually it got inside of me and now I think I'm not good too. So this glory that's already there is when we're healing from identifying with an other. And there's entrances and cushioning. So we can now emerge through the self-expression, and there's a cushion that this is who I was always meant to be. So this path, again, is all in line with a house divided cannot stand. And I thank you for your time. And you might notice I'm in a new environment and there was some dogs. It's because I'm not home right now. And I'll be away from home for a week. So my videos will be live from here. And I look forward to tomorrow. Thank you.